The stars above Rena Prime shone like cold silver eyes. Rena Prime was a quiet border system far from the main human worlds. It had one green planet, 2 moons, and an asteroid belt filled with old mining stations. The system was not famous. It had no great cities and no grand military bases. But it was part of human space, and that alone gave it value. Commander Raoul stood on the bridge of the human flagship Valor. He was tall, calm, and carried the quiet weight of responsibility. His uniform was simple, with only a single silver line on the shoulders. Around him, the crew worked with focus. Screens showed the dark emptiness around the system. Raoul had served in border patrol for many years. He had seen pirates, smugglers, and the rare strange object from the deep, but nothing had ever felt like this day. A silent alarm blinked on the radar station. "Commander, we have unknown contacts entering the system," said Mira, the sensor officer. Her voice was steady, but her fingers moved quickly across the screen. "I count at least 60 ships. Their energy signatures are not from any human fleet." Raoul walked closer and stared at the display. Red dots filled the outer edge of the system. The pattern was not random. It was a formation. "Whoever they were, they came with order and purpose. Can you identify the design?" Raoul asked. Mira shook her head. "No match in any database. Their energy output is very strong. This is not a pirate group." The bridge grew silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If it was not a pirate group and not a human fleet, it was something else. Something far more dangerous. Raoul took a slow breath. "Signal the fleet. Battle stations." A soft tone rang through the Valor and through every ship in the small defense group. 30 ships responded. They were not huge capital ships. Most were frigates and destroyers. A few were light cruisers. They were fast, smart, and built for defense. Raoul opened a channel to the other captains. Their faces appeared on the large central screen. Captain Lena of the frigate Aurora was the first to speak. "Commander, is it confirmed?" "Yes," Raoul said. "We have incoming ships. Unknown design. Formation suggests a military fleet. We are the only line between them and human space. We hold the line." There were no shouts or dramatic speeches. These people knew their duty. Every captain nodded. They had trained for this moment, even if they had hoped it would never come. Far away on the other side of the system, the Galactic Imperial fleet moved through the stars with cold grace. The Imperial ships were sharp, long and black like knives of night. Their engines left blue trails that shimmered like ghost fire. Admiral Varric stood on the command deck of the Imperial flagship Pride of Varnus. Varric was not young. His face carried the lines of many campaigns. He had fought rebels, crushed free colonies, and burned pirate kings out of their hiding places. His uniform shone with the golden mark of an Imperial admiral. Behind him, the Empire stretched across 1,000 systems. To him, this was just another simple task. "Are these the human border defenses?" asked Captain Rorn, his second in command. "Yes," Varric said. "The scouts report 30 ships. Old models. Weak energy signatures. They will fall fast. This will be a short show of force. The Empire will place its flag on their world, and they will kneel like all the others." He turned toward the star map and pointed at Rena Prime. "We will begin with one warning. If they resist, we end them. Bring the fleet into attack formation." The Imperial fleet moved like a single giant beast. Cruisers led the way. Battleships followed. Fighters waited in their launch bays like sharp blades in a box. On the Valor, Mira reported the new readings. "The unknown ships are closing fast. I can confirm they have heavy cruisers and battleships. They are much larger than ours." Raoul nodded. "So it begins." He pressed a button on the console. A clear voice echoed across the small human fleet. "This is Commander Raoul of the Human Border Defense. We face a large enemy fleet. We will not retreat. We will defend Rena Prime. Trust your training. Trust your ships. Trust each other." Lena answered over the channel. "Valor, Aurora ready." Other captains followed one after another. One by one, the fleet formed a shield between the planet and the Imperial Armada. The first Imperial transmission arrived. The face of Admiral Varric appeared on the main screen. His eyes were cold. His voice was deep and full of pride. "Unknown human commander, you face the fleet of the Galactic Empire. You will power down your ships. You will surrender your planet. You will kneel to the rule of the Empire. Resistance is pointless. You have one chance to submit." Raoul stood straight, hands behind his back. "We will not surrender. This is human territory. If you attack, we will fight. Varric stared at him with a small, cruel smile. Then you will be destroyed. The screen went dark. On the Imperial flagship, Varric raised his hand. Begin the assault. The Imperial fleet surged forward. Lines of energy fire lit up the dark. Dozens of beams flew toward the small human defense line. On the Valor, shields flared as the first hits came. Shields at 80%, Mira shouted. Raoul's voice was calm. All ships return fire. Focus on their forward cruisers. Human cannons fired in perfect timing. Torpedoes launched from hidden silos. Fast strike frigates moved to the sides to break the enemy formation. The Imperial commanders were surprised. They expected fear. Instead, they found precision. Human ships moved fast and sharp. They hit weak spots with accuracy. One Imperial cruiser lost power and began to drift. Another had its engines torn open by a torpedo burst. Still, the Empire had numbers. Imperial beams crashed against human shields again and again. One human destroyer exploded. Another lost half its hull. Raoul never raised his voice. Hold formation. Do not break the line. Target their lead cruiser. Make them feel every hit. The crew obeyed. Fighters launched. Small drones flew like a cloud around the Imperial fleet. The Empire had strength. The humans had speed and smart tactics. On the Pride of Varnus, Admiral Varric narrowed his eyes. They fight well. Better than expected, Captain Rorn frowned. But they are few. They will break soon. Varric did not answer. Something in the way these humans fought disturbed him. They were not acting like a weak race. Their moves were sharp and planned. Every ship seemed to know exactly where to be. On the Valor, Raoul saw the Imperial flagship moving closer. It was a massive black ship that seemed to swallow light. He knew that if it broke through, the entire line would fall. Send the Ghost Wing, Raoul ordered. From behind an asteroid belt, 6 stealth frigates powered up their engines. They were hidden at the start of the battle. Now they moved like shadows toward the side of the Imperial fleet. The Empire did not see them coming until it was too late. The Ghost Wing fired at the engines of 2 Imperial cruisers, cutting their power. The massive ship spun out of formation. On the Imperial bridge, alarms rang. Varric turned sharply. Where did those come from? Stealth frigates, Rorn said. They were hiding in the asteroid field. Varric clenched his jaw. This was not a group of untrained defenders. This was a planned defense. The battle raged on. Energy beams crossed the void like rivers of light. Explosions flashed like stars being born and dying again. The Imperial fleet kept pushing forward. The human line kept holding. Mira called out, 2 more cruisers disabled. They are trying to flank us on the left. Send the Falcon Wing to intercept, Raoul said. Light frigates from the Falcon Wing moved with speed and cut off the Imperial flankers. Missiles burst in a silent storm. The Valor shook as another beam struck its shield. Shields at 50%, Mira reported. Raoul steadied himself. We hold the line. On the Pride of Varnus, Varric watched the growing wreckage of his ships. He had expected a quick surrender. Instead, he faced a stubborn wall of fire. His officers whispered to each other. Some looked uneasy. These are not savages, Varric said at last. These are soldiers. His fleet was still larger. But his pride took the first crack. The Empire had not lost in many years. Now, on the edge of human space, it had found resistance it did not understand. As the battle dragged into its 3rd hour, both fleets floated among broken metal. The humans were tired but unbroken. The Imperials were bleeding power but still advancing. On the Valor, Raoul stood at the front window. The enemy flagship loomed larger. He knew this was only the beginning. This fleet was strong, but he also knew something the Empire did not. This was not the main human force. This was just the border guard. The smoke from the first clash floated in space like gray mist. The wrecks of broken ships drifted slowly between the 2 fleets. Fires burned inside some of the shattered hulls. The battle had not ended. It was only waiting for the next storm. Commander Raoul stood on the bridge of the Valor with his hands resting on the control rail. His crew worked around him with tired eyes and steady hands. They had fought longer than expected. Many of them had never faced a fleet this large before. But no one had run. No one had broken. Mira, the sensor officer, wiped sweat from her forehead and checked the screens again. Commander, the enemy fleet is regrouping. They have pulled back their damaged cruisers. I count 30 active warships still moving toward us. Raoul nodded slowly. He knew this moment would come. The Empire had not expected resistance. Now that it had met it, it would come again, stronger and more careful. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked. Lena's voice came through the channel from the Aurora. "Commander, we still have 26 ships in fighting condition. 2 destroyers are damaged but still with us. Shields are weak, but spirits are strong." "Good," Raoul said. "We cannot let them pass. If they break through, they will burn the planet." He looked at the screen. The green world of Reyna Prime floated behind the human fleet like a silent witness. Its people were watching from the surface, some in cities, some in small villages. They trusted the fleet to keep them safe. Raoul felt the weight of their hope pressing on his shoulders. "Enemy movement detected," Mira called out. "They are sending smaller ships ahead. Looks like a wave of fighters and bombers." Raoul took a deep breath. "All flak batteries online. Drone wings prepare for interception. Do not waste missiles on the first wave. Let them come closer." Outside the Valor, the silent dark lit up again. Dozens of Imperial fighters flew forward like a storm of wasps. Their engines burned bright blue. Behind them, heavy bombers followed with thick armored hulls. The human fleet responded. Hundreds of defense drones left their bays and formed thin spinning lines in front of the main ships. The drone wings had no pilots. They moved fast, guided by shared control programs. They cut through space like silver birds. The first clash came fast. Imperial fighters fired beams and missiles. Human drones answered with small energy cannons and flak bursts. Explosions lit the void. Pieces of metal scattered in all directions. "Left flank holding," reported one officer. "Right flank under pressure." Raoul pointed at the right side of the map. "Send Falcon Wing to reinforce the right. Keep the drones in formation. Do not chase too far. Stay close to the fleet." Falcon Wing frigates moved to the right. Their cannons roared. The Imperial bombers tried to push through to target the bigger human ships, but the drones and frigates blocked them with deadly precision. On the Imperial flagship Pride of Varnus, Admiral Varric watched the battle from his command deck. He had expected the human drones to scatter and fall apart like most primitive defense systems. Instead, they moved with cold order. Every time an Imperial fighter broke through, it was surrounded and destroyed. "They fight with discipline," Captain Rorn said with a frown. "Their small ships are not advanced, but their coordination is excellent." Varric's jaw tightened. "They are not fighting like farmers, they are fighting like soldiers. Increase pressure, send in the main attack group. I want their line broken." The Imperial heavy cruisers and battleships pushed forward again. Energy cannons charged. Missile bays opened. A second wave of Imperial fire crossed the space and struck the human line. On the Valor, alarms blared. The ship shook as a beam grazed the shield. Mira grabbed the console. "Shields at 40%. Several hits on outer hull. Return fire," Raoul commanded. "Target their lead cruiser. All torpedo tubes ready. Fire on my mark." Across the human fleet, captains waited for Raoul's signal. Torpedo tubes glowed with red light. Targeting systems locked on. "Mark," Raoul said. A storm of torpedoes launched from the human fleet. They streaked across the darkness toward the Imperial lead cruiser. The Imperial shields flared as the torpedoes struck. One after another, they broke through the shield and tore into the hull. The cruiser's engines failed. It began to spin out of formation. On the Imperial bridge, Rorn turned to Varric. "Lead cruiser is losing power. They hit the same spot 3 times. Varric's eyes narrowed. "They know how to fight a fleet. This is no random defense." Raoul watched the crippled cruiser drift away. He did not celebrate. He knew there were many more behind it. "Keep moving," Raoul said. "Stay flexible. They will try to flank us next." Mira nodded. "Multiple contacts splitting from the main Imperial group. They are moving toward our left and right sides. Classic pincer." "Lena, take the Aurora and 5 ships to the left flank," Raoul ordered. "Falcon Wing, hold the right. Valor and Iron Spear hold the center. We will not let them surround us." The human fleet shifted positions like pieces on a game board. They were smaller, but their movements were sharp and fast. The Imperial pincer closed in. Fire lit up on both sides. Explosions flashed as small ships were destroyed. The left flank burned hot. Lena's voice came through the radio. "We are holding. We need more drone support." "Sending drones," Raoul answered. "Hold your ground." The battle became a storm of flashing lights and roaring engines. Human ships weaved through enemy fire. Imperial beams ripped through space like burning spears. Inside the Valor, the crew moved with fast hands. Engineers rerouted power from life support to shields. Gunners focused on weak spots. Mira's voice rose over the noise. "Commander, their flagship is staying back. They are letting their cruisers do the heavy work." Raoul thought for a moment. "They think we are already weak. That is their mistake. Prepare the Ghost Wing again. I want them to strike from behind when the enemy commits everything." Ghost Wing, the small stealth fleet that had helped in the first clash, powered up its engines in the shadows behind the asteroid belt. Meanwhile, on the Imperial Bridge, Varric stepped closer to the front window. His fleet had lost several cruisers, but he still held the advantage in numbers. He believed the humans would soon break. "Admiral, their left flank is fighting harder than expected," Rorn said. "We have lost 4 ships in that sector." "Keep pushing," Varric said. "They cannot hold forever. Once their formation breaks, we take the planet." On the Valor, Raoul saw the Imperial ships closing in like a tightening fist. He could feel the pressure building. One wrong move could end everything, but his voice stayed calm. "All ships Titan formation, Ghostwing, go now." Ghostwing left the asteroid shadows and flew silently toward the Imperial backline. Their stealth systems kept them hidden until the very last second. When they fired, they aimed for the engines of 2 Imperial battleships. The torpedoes struck clean. The engines burst into flames. The huge ships stopped moving. On the Imperial Bridge, Rorn shouted, "Rear ships hit. We did not detect them." Varric slammed his fist on the console. "They are using shadow strikes. Pull ships from the center to protect the rear." That order created a gap in the Imperial center. Raoul saw it at once. "Now. All ships forward. Target the center. Full power." The human fleet surged ahead like a sharp blade. Torpedoes and energy beams rained into the Imperial middle line. One cruiser exploded. Another broke in half. Mira shouted, "Center collapsing. They are pulling back." Cheers rose from some of the crew. Raoul did not allow the moment to make them careless. "Keep pressure, but stay in range. Do not chase into their trap." On the Imperial Bridge, Varric saw the human counterattack. His formation wavered. He had underestimated them. He had expected panic and fear. Instead, he had found a fleet that fought with the skill of a great power. "Admiral," Rorn said with a strained voice, "we have lost 12 ships. Their center push is cutting through us." Varric stared at the human ships. His pride burned. This should not be possible. They are only 30 ships. How are they doing this? "They fight like they have nothing to lose," Rorn whispered. Varric finally gave the order no Imperial commander had given in many years. "Pull the fleet back. Regroup. We will crush them in the next wave." The Imperial ships began to retreat in order. Broken cruisers limped toward the rear. Fighters pulled back to their carriers. The glow of their engines faded as they moved away. On the Valor, the crew watched in silence as the Imperial fleet retreated. The battlefield was filled with floating wreckage, both human and Imperial. The silence felt heavier than the sound of battle. Lena's voice came through the channel. "Commander, they are pulling back. We did it." Raoul looked at the green planet behind him, and then at the scattered remains of ships. "This is not the end. This is only a pause. They will return stronger. Prepare the crews, repair the ships, send rescue teams for survivors." He turned to Mira. "Any sign of reinforcements from Earth Command?" "None yet," Mira said. "We are still alone." Raoul nodded. "Then we keep standing. If they come again, they will find us ready." On the Imperial flagship, Varric stood alone on the command deck. He looked out at the broken wrecks of his ships. He had never been forced to retreat before. His pride burned hot inside him. "Next time," he said quietly, "next time they will break." He did not know that humanity had not yet shown its true strength. The fleet that had beaten him was only a border guard. The real storm was still behind the stars. The void above Rena Prime was quiet again, but it was the kind of silence that hid a storm. Wrecked ships drifted through space like broken bones. Some of them burned slowly. Others floated without power. Rescue drones flew between the wreckage, searching for survivors. The first battle had ended, but no one on the human side believed it was over. Everyone knew the Empire would come again. Commander Raoul stood at the front window of the Valor. His reflection was faint in the glass, and behind it, the stars looked cold and sharp. He felt tired, but his eyes stayed clear. Around him, the bridge crew worked without complaint. Every hand moved with purpose. "Damage control report," Raoul said. Lieutenant Harris answered from the console. "Shields at 60% after emergency repairs. All breach in Section 12 sealed. Engine output stable. Weapons ready for another fight." Raoul nodded. "Good, and the fleet?" Lena's voice came through the comms from the Aurora. "All ships are reporting partial damage. We lost 4 ships completely. 2 are badly damaged but can still fight. Engineers are working non-stop. Everyone is ready to defend again if they return." Raoul pressed a hand on the console. "They will return. The Empire does not accept defeat easily. We must be smarter than them." Mira raised her eyes from the sensor station. "Commander, what if they bring double the ships next time?" "They will," Raoul answered. "That is why we need to make them bleed harder. We need to fight with the mind, not just the guns." Outside the main fleet, repair ships floated near the broken hulls. Engineers in armored suits moved along the Valor's surface. The fleet worked together like a single machine. They had little time, but they used every second well. Inside the strategy room of the Valor, Raoul met with the captains. Lena stood with folded arms, a bandage on her shoulder from a minor injury. Captain Omari from the Iron Spear sat at the table, tired but alert. Holograms of the system floated in the air between them. Raoul pointed at the edge of the system where the Imperial fleet had retreated. "They are gathering forces. I expect a second wave within 40 hours, maybe sooner. We cannot match their numbers, but we can use the system itself to our advantage." Omari leaned forward. "What do you have in mind?" Raoul expanded the hologram to show the asteroid belt. "This field has thousands of rocks, big ones and small ones. We will turn it into a wall. We will place mines and drone clusters here. When the enemy pushes through, they will be trapped inside a maze of fire." Lena's eyes brightened. "We can also use stealth frigates in the belt again. If we hide them deep enough, the Empire will not detect them until it is too late." Raoul nodded. "Exactly. We will let them think they are pushing us back, but in truth we will lead them into the trap." Omari rubbed his chin. "It is risky. If they find the trap too early, they will destroy it." "It is risky," Raoul said, "but waiting for them in open space is death. We will make this system fight for us." The captains agreed. Plans were made. Orders were sent. Crews began to move. Across the system, mining drones were reprogrammed into explosive charges. They were hidden inside asteroid cracks and behind space debris. Small gun platforms were powered up in old mining stations. Drone wings were divided into groups that could strike from different directions at once. On the Imperial flagship Pride of Varnus, Admiral Varek stood in his private chamber, staring at the star map. His fleet had suffered a blow, one he had not expected. He had spent years crushing rebels and weak colonies. None had hurt the Empire this way. He hated that feeling. He hated the thought that these humans had made him retreat. Rorn entered the chamber. "Admiral, the reinforcements have arrived. 50 more ships joined our fleet. Command has ordered us to take the system at all costs." Varek turned to him. "Good. This time we will not play with them. We will strike with everything." Rorn hesitated. "They are clever fighters. We should not underestimate them again." Varek gave him a cold look. "They won because we treated them like children. This time we crushed them with overwhelming force. They cannot stop us twice." The Imperial fleet now numbered more than 100 ships. Their engines burned bright as they moved into formation. Fighters and bombers prepared for launch. Drones armed with cutting beams waited in their bays. On the Valor, Mira saw the readings first. "Commander, Imperial reinforcements detected." Large fleet approaching. Over 100 ships. The bridge grew quiet for a moment. Everyone understood what that meant. But fear did not take root. It had already burned away in the first battle. What remained was hard resolve. Raoul spoke calmly. "Signal all ships. Move to Phase 2 positions. The trap must be ready before they arrive." Lena answered through the comms. "Aurora moving to the left flank. Drone groups Alpha and Beta are in place, Omari followed. Iron Spear ready at center. Shield emitters stable. Weapons charged. One by one, the human ships moved into position. Some hid inside the asteroid belt. Others stayed behind the main defense line, ready to strike from the shadows. The drones formed silent patterns in space, waiting for the command to attack. Hours passed like minutes. The Imperial fleet entered the system again. This time they came like a hammer. Fighters spread out, battleships lined up. Their engines shook the void. Imperial fleet entering engagement range, Mira reported. Let them come closer, Raoul said. His voice was quiet but firm. The Imperial fighters moved first. They formed wide attack wings and rushed toward the human defense line. Human drones met them in the middle of the field. Beams flashed. Missiles exploded. The fighter battle became a storm again. Then the Imperial cruisers advanced. Their cannons opened fire. Long beams of energy cut through the darkness and slammed into human shields. Shields at 70%, Harris said. Outer defenses holding. Do not return full fire yet, Raoul ordered. We need them deeper. On the Imperial flagship, Varric leaned forward. He smelled victory already. They are not pushing hard. They must be weak. All ships forward. Break their line. The Imperial fleet moved into the asteroid belt without caution. Their sensors scanned the rocks but did not find the hidden mines. Varric believed the humans were retreating. He did not see the trap closing around him. Inside the belt, hidden torpedo pods armed themselves. Drone wings powered up quietly. Stealth frigates prepared their first strike. Now, Raoul said. The asteroid belt exploded with fire. Mines detonated between the Imperial cruisers. Drones swarmed out like a storm of steel birds. Torpedoes hit engines and shield generators. Imperial ships were thrown into chaos. Some collided with floating rocks. Others lost power from the sudden hits. What is happening? Rorn shouted on the Imperial bridge. They set a trap, Varric growled. All ships spread out. Fire at anything moving. But spreading out only made it worse. The human fleet attacked from all sides. Ghost Wings struck from the shadows, hitting battleships at their weak points. Falcon Wing charged the flank, drawing Imperial fire into empty space. Lena's ships ambushed from behind the rocks. Target their engines, Raoul commanded. Make them drift. Every human shot was aimed with care. They could not match the Empire in numbers, so they used precision. A single strike on an engine could disable a massive ship. One after another, Imperial cruisers lost control and spun away from the fight. On the Imperial flagship, alarms screamed. Varric stared at the growing firestorm around him. He had walked into the trap like a fool. Admiral, we are losing ships fast, Rorn said. Their attack is coordinated. We cannot hold this formation. Pull back to open space, Varric ordered. But it was not easy to pull back. The asteroid belt was now a burning maze. Imperial ships tried to retreat but crashed into wreckage or were cut down by drones. On the Valor, Raoul's eyes never left the screen. Keep the pressure. Do not let them recover. The Imperial flagship managed to break free of the belt with heavy damage. Several cruisers followed. But many ships were left behind, burning in silence. They are retreating again, Mira said. Lena's voice came over the comms. We got them good this time. Raoul did not smile. They will be back. But now they know we are not weak. And now the galaxy will know it too. On the Imperial flagship, Varric stood in the smoke-filled bridge. His pride was wounded deeper than before. His fleet had entered with strength and had left in ruin. He clenched his fists. This is not over. The Empire will bring everything next time. What he did not know was that Earth Command had received Raoul's report, and the voice of the Empire's defeat was already spreading among the stars. Humanity had not yet sent its main force, but the galaxy had already begun to whisper about the defenders of Rena Prime. The stars over Rena Prime burned like white fires against the black of space. Debris from the first battle still floated between the planet and the Imperial blockade. Silent wrecks drifted in the cold, reminders of the fight that shook the Empire. Many Imperial ships had fallen, but Raoul's small human fleet still held its position near the defense ring of Rena Prime. Every crew member on the human ships felt the weight of the coming storm. They had fought bravely once and won. They knew the Empire would not accept defeat. It would return with more power, more ships, and more fire. On the bridge of the command ship horizon, Raoul stood near the tactical table. A faint blue light from the screens covered his face. He watched Imperial movements on the edge of the system. He could see new signals. The second wave was coming. "Admiral, more Imperial ships have jumped into the outer orbit," said Mira, the communications officer. "I count at least 3 times their first force." Raoul nodded slowly. "They are angry now. They will try to crush us." The room stayed quiet. The crew trusted him, but they also understood the danger. They were only a border defense group. No main battle fleet, no heavy carriers. Only fast ships, smart tactics, and their courage. Raoul lifted his head and looked at the stars through the wide glass of the bridge. He thought about home, about Earth far away, about the many people who believed their small force was enough to hold this line. Suddenly, a message came through. Mira turned to him again. "It's from Earth Command." Raoul stepped forward. A calm, firm voice filled the room. "Commander Raoul, reinforcements are on the way, but they need time. Hold the line. Every hour you hold will weaken the Empire. Make them bleed for every meter." Raoul straightened. "Understood, Command. We will hold." The crew felt a new wave of strength after hearing that voice. They knew they were not forgotten. Behind them, the full weight of humanity waited. Their job was to buy time. Across the system, Admiral Varric of the Empire stood on his flagship. The Imperial fleet stretched in perfect formation, shining like a metal storm. He had lost many ships in the first battle, and the news of that loss had already reached the capital. The High Command had given him a simple order: destroy the humans. He looked at the tactical map. His ships outnumbered the humans by a large margin. His weapons were powerful. His pride told him this time would be different. "Humans fight like cornered animals," he said to his officers, "but animals always fall when the cage closes." "Admiral, our squadrons are ready," said one of his aides. "Shall we begin the attack?" Varric raised his hand. "Not yet. First, show them the size of our power." One by one, massive Imperial warships moved forward. Their engines glowed bright as they formed a wall of steel and fire. Smaller destroyers lined up at the front, followed by heavy cruisers. At the center, the flagship, a ship larger than any human vessel in the system, aimed its cannons toward the human fleet. The Imperial fleet filled the radar screens on horizon. Raoul saw them come. His fleet looked so small in comparison, 30 ships against hundreds. He took a deep breath. Numbers were not everything. Humanity had already proved that once. He turned to his crew. "They think they can crush us with size," Raoul said. "They forget who we are. We fight with our minds, with our hearts. We will not give them the victory they want. We will make them pay for every ship they send." "Yes, Commander," the crew replied with strong voices. The human fleet began to move. The ships spread into layered lines, hiding behind defense platforms and drone clouds. Rena Prime's defense satellites powered up their weapons. Old but strong orbital cannons rotated toward the enemy. Drones formed clusters around the smaller ships, ready to swarm at the first command. Raoul's tactics were not about brute strength. They were about precision, timing, and chaos. The battle began when the Empire fired the first volley. A wave of energy beams shot through the void, hitting the drone walls and shaking defense platforms. The sky lit up like a storm. Human ships returned fire with smaller but well-aimed shots. Every round they sent forward hit weak points on Imperial formations. Varric watched as some of his destroyers lost engines within the first minutes. "Annoying insects," Varric said coldly. "All ships advance." The Imperial fleet pushed forward like a metal tide. The humans responded with speed. Instead of standing still, they weaved between asteroid fields and used orbital shadows to break enemy targeting. The defense satellites fired in perfect rhythm with the frigates. Imperial ships started to fall out of formation, their shields flickering under precise hits. Raoul stood calm. He pointed at the main screen.
"Squadron 2, flank the 3rd Imperial line."
"Squadron 3, keep their carriers busy." "Yes, Commander," came the fast replies. Human frigates moved like hunters, circling the larger Imperial cruisers. Drone pods released swarms that attacked engines, communication dishes, and weapon arrays. Varric growled when he saw his ships being slowed down. The humans were forcing the Empire to fight on their terms. On the ground of Rena Prime, citizens and soldiers watched the battle unfold through giant screens. The people of the planet had seen the Empire as a force that could not be stopped. Now they watched as their defenders, a small human fleet, stood against a storm and did not fall. A young soldier named Amir looked up at the display with wide eyes. "They are holding. They are really holding." In space, the Imperial fleet finally reached the inner defense line. The fighting became close and brutal. Large ships clashed. Shields flared. Wrecks burned. Raoul's flagship Horizon shook under the pressure of concentrated fire. "Forward shields at 30%, Mira shouted. "Keep firing," Raoul said. Varric saw the human flagship take heavy hits. He felt victory close. He ordered a full push to break the line. But as his ships closed in, hidden defense platforms under the orbit of Rena Prime came online. Massive beams of white light tore through the darkness and struck the Imperial flank. 3 cruisers exploded in a chain reaction. The Empire's advance slowed again. "They had more guns hidden," said Varric's second officer. "They planned this trap." Varric clenched his fists. "Then we burn their trap." He sent bombers forward, but Raoul was ready. The drones moved into new formations, forming barriers and intercepting many of the bombers before they reached the line. Explosions filled space like sparks. The battle turned into a storm of light. Hour after hour, both sides fought. Imperial numbers gave them strength, but human tactics kept them from breaking through. Varric's anger grew. He had expected to win in minutes. Instead, the humans were forcing him to spend everything. Raoul's crew was tired but focused. Every ship that fell was replaced in formation by another. Every gap was filled by drones or satellite fire. Raoul looked at his screen. The Imperial formation was no longer clean. Gaps opened where their ships had been destroyed. Confusion spread in their ranks. He saw his chance. "Signal all ships," Raoul said. "Now we strike back." Human ships surged forward. Small, fast and fearless, they struck at the Imperial core. Drones followed them like a storm of steel. The Empire was not ready for a counterattack. Several Imperial destroyers fell in minutes. Varric shouted orders, trying to bring his fleet back under control. From orbit, the people of Rena Prime cheered. For the first time, they saw the Imperial line bend, but the Empire was still dangerous. Varric launched his reserve forces. Giant carriers opened their hangars, releasing hundreds of fighters. The swarm of Imperial fighters filled the sky. Human ships braced for impact. The battle raged hotter than ever. Every ship shook. Every crew member gave everything they had. On Horizon, alarms rang. "Port engine hit," shouted one engineer. "We are losing power." Raoul gripped the railing. "Reroute everything to shields. We hold." Even under heavy fire, the humans refused to break. Varric watched in disbelief as the battle stretched far longer than any he had planned. His fleet was bleeding and his ships were burning. Still, the human fleet stood like a wall. On Rena Prime, the screens flashed with new signals. Distant warp signatures began to appear at the edge of the system. Earth Command had kept its promise. Reinforcements were coming. Raoul saw the signals too. His eyes narrowed. "They are almost here," he whispered. "One last push." He ordered his remaining squadrons to fall back into a tight circle around Rena Prime. The defense satellites aligned in perfect synchronization. Drones regrouped like a silver storm. Varric tried to push forward again, but his ships were tired and scattered. His formation was broken. Then the horizon of space lit up. The first wave of the real human battle fleet arrived. Massive warships, carriers, and cruisers jumped into the system. Their engines painted the darkness with bright light. Varric stared in shock. His officers froze. This was not their main fleet, one of his aides said quietly. Raoul watched from his bridge as the reinforcement fleet formed a wall behind his smaller group. His crew felt a wave of relief and pride. They had held the line long enough. They had forced the mighty Empire to fight a desperate battle. The people of Rena Prime shouted with joy. The Imperial fleet, once sure of its strength, now faced a wall of human power they had never imagined. Varric clenched his jaw. He understood now why the High Command had feared humans. If this small group could do this, what would the main fleet do? The battle was not over, but the tide had turned. Humanity was no longer just defending. It was ready to strike back. The space around Rena Prime glowed like a furnace. The last moments of the Imperial attack had left trails of fire, broken ships and shattered metal drifting between the stars. The small human fleet had held its ground longer than anyone believed possible. Now the true power of humanity had arrived. The main fleet appeared at the edge of the system like a wall of light. Their engines burned bright, their hulls clean and sharp. Heavy carriers, massive cruisers, and sleek destroyers took formation in perfect silence. Their arrival was not loud. It was powerful and calm, like a wave that needed no words to prove its strength. On the horizon, Raoul stood at the center of his bridge. He had spent hours fighting with everything he had. His crew was tired. Some ships were damaged. but they had done their duty. He watched the new ships fill his screens and felt a surge of pride rise inside him. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Mira spoke from the communications panel. Command Fleet is sending a direct channel. They want to link tactical systems. Raoul nodded. Link everything. We stand together now. A voice came through the speakers. It was steady and calm. Commander Raoul, this is Admiral Ryan of the 3rd Human Fleet. You did well. You held the line, Raoul replied with a firm voice. We did our part, Admiral. The Empire is wounded, but they are still strong. We will finish what you started, said Admiral Ryan. Across the system, the Imperial fleet tried to regroup. Admiral Varric stood on the deck of his flagship, looking at the endless rows of human ships forming against him. He had believed this battle was a simple task. Now his heart felt a weight he had never known before. The humans were not weak. They were strong, organized, and far more dangerous than the Empire had ever imagined. How many ships are there? Varric asked. Thousands, said his aide. More are still arriving. The Imperial officers stared at the tactical map in silence. The image of the human fleet looked like an iron wall stretching across the stars. The Empire had brought its might to crush a border defense line. Now it faced a force far beyond anything it had prepared for. Admiral Ryan raised his hand on the command bridge of the human flagship Valor. All squadrons take battle positions. Carriers prepare fighter wings. Cruisers hold the line. Frigates follow Horizon's lead. This ends here. The human fleet moved like a single living creature. Fighters launched from their bays in perfect waves. Heavy cruisers slid into firing range. Long-range artillery ships began charging their weapons. Raoul watched from Horizon as the fleet formed. He felt no fear now. He felt the power of unity behind him. On the Imperial flagship, Varric tried to gather his officers. We will not retreat. We will crush them as we crushed others before. But his words carried no strength. Many of his officers had already seen the numbers. They knew this battle was lost before it began. They also knew the Emperor did not accept failure. The first human volley fired. Beams of energy and rail shells cut through space like blades. They struck the Imperial front line, tearing destroyers apart and breaking shields. The shockwave rippled across the enemy formation. Imperial ships tried to answer, but the human formation was tighter and more precise. Every shot was aimed to break something important. Every volley created new gaps in the enemy lines. Raoul gave his orders clearly. Horizon, follow Squadron 2, hit their flank. Keep them off balance. His crew responded without hesitation. Even damaged, Horizon moved with speed and accuracy. Smaller human ships followed, circling Imperial cruisers like hunters around a wounded beast. The drones joined the attack again, this time supported by fighter wings from the carriers. The Imperial ships were overwhelmed. Admiral Varric stared at the growing chaos around him. Human fighters moved faster than his targeting systems could track. Their capital ships worked in perfect unity. His forces were strong, but they were used to facing enemies that broke under pressure. The humans were different. They were steady. They fought like they had already decided they would win. On Valor, Admiral Ryan gave a new order. Advance the center line. Cut through them. The main human cruisers opened fire in a perfect line. The Imperial center exploded into fire and broken metal. One by one, their ships fell back. Some tried to retreat, others tried to hold. The once proud Imperial formation turned into a scattered wave of panic. Rena Prime's people watched the scene through every screen. For years, they had lived under the shadow of the Empire's strength. Now they saw human ships push the Empire back. On the streets of the colony, cheers rose like thunder. Soldiers saluted the sky. Families embraced with tears of hope. Amir, the young soldier on the ground, clenched his fist as he watched the Imperial fleet fall. They did it. We did it. Varric tried to rally his ships. He shouted commands. All ships returned to formation. Fight them. But it was too late. The human fleet pressed forward without mercy. Fighter wings swept through Imperial squadrons. Carriers launched endless waves. Drones struck from hidden angles. Heavy cannons crushed Imperial shields. Every moment made the Empire weaker. Inside Horizon, Mira shouted, "They are breaking! Their center is collapsing." Raoul's voice stayed calm. "Keep pressure. Do not give them a chance to breathe." The Imperial flagship took a direct hit. Alarms blared across Varric's bridge. Officers shouted reports of failing systems. The proud admiral felt the ground shake beneath his feet. His fleet was dying around him. He could not understand how this had happened. How could a force the Empire ignored become this strong? One of his officers turned to him with fear in his eyes. "Admiral, we must retreat." Varric looked at the massive human fleet ahead. He had no choice. "Signal all remaining ships. Fall back." The Imperial fleet began to retreat from the system. Their formation was broken and their ships were burning. Behind them, the human fleet held formation, standing like guardians of Rena Prime. Admiral Ryan did not chase too far. His goal was not to destroy everything. It was to send a message. Humanity was not weak. The voice of Ryan echoed across the open channel. "This is Admiral Ryan of the human fleet. You came to conquer us. You failed. Remember this day." The transmission reached every corner of the Imperial fleet. It spread to nearby systems. It reached merchant ships and colonies. It reached neutral species watching from afar. The legend began to grow at that moment. On the horizon, the crew cheered. They hugged each other, exhausted but proud. Raoul stood at the window watching the Imperial fleet retreat into the dark. He knew this was not the end of the war, but it was a beginning. The Empire had learned something today. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Mira smiled as she turned to Raoul. "We did it, Commander." Raoul shook his head softly. "We all did it." The line held because every ship, every hand, and every heart refused to give up. Across Rena Prime, sirens that once warned of invasion now played songs of victory. Soldiers raised the human flag over the main defense base. Civilians poured into the streets, waving lights toward the sky. They knew this moment would be remembered for generations. Far away in the Imperial capital, messages poured into the throne room. Reports of defeat. Reports of heavy losses. The Emperor sat in silence as the truth became clear. Humanity was not a small border threat. Humanity was a power that could challenge the Empire itself. Across other star systems, alien nations watched the broadcasts. Many had feared the Empire for years. Now they saw it bleed. Now they saw humans do what no one else had done before. Whispers began in foreign councils. Some saw a new hope. Others saw a new power rising. The galaxy itself felt a shift. Back on the horizon, Raoul gave the final order of the day. "Begin rescue operations. Recover our people. Honor every ship we lost." Shuttles moved through the battlefield, picking up survivors, repairing platforms, and collecting the remains of ships. The human fleet worked with quiet efficiency. Victory was important, but they never forgot the cost. As the sun rose over Rena Prime, the sky lit up with human ships in formation. The people below watched in awe. They had seen the darkness of war. Now they saw the light of strength. Humanity had shown the galaxy its power. It had defended its home, held the line, and forced a mighty empire to retreat. Later, in a meeting aboard the Valor, Admiral Ryan and Commander Raoul stood side by side. Their uniforms were marked with the signs of battle, but their eyes were clear. "You did something remarkable," said Ryan. "You stood against them with a small force and you did not break." Raoul replied with steady pride. "We stood because we had no other choice. Humanity stands together or falls apart, and we do not fall." Ryan placed a hand on Raoul's shoulder. "This victory will echo through the stars. They will remember Rena Prime. They will also remember," Raoul said, "that this was not even our main fleet." Silence filled the room. It was not a silence of fear, but of strength. Both men knew the Empire would return someday, but when it did, it would face a humanity united, powerful, and fearless. The camera drones outside the ship captured the final image of the day. Hundreds of human ships stood in formation over Rena Prime. Their lights burned bright against the black of space. It was more than a victory. It was a statement. Across the galaxy, species whispered the same words. That was not even humanity's main fleet. The Empire had learned its lesson. The stars had a new power to respect. Humanity had risen and nothing would be the same again.